Open up to Mark chapter 7. Now that's a big 7, and then look for all the little numbers, 1 all the way to 23. Now last week, we ended with everybody coming to Jesus, and they were coming to Jesus for healing. And all the people had to do was have faith, and they wanted to touch Jesus's cloak, and they were healed. And in our story today, many had gathered around Jesus, but this time, they weren't looking for Jesus to heal them. No, this time they came from far away to gather around Jesus, and they were being mean. They were telling Jesus that all his disciples were not following the rules. They were not following the laws. They saw that the disciples, they were eating with unwashed hands. Okay, let's stop right there. Does your mom or your dad, do they make you wash your hands before dinner? I know at my house, I say wash up when it's time to eat. So what about you? That's not a terrible idea, but really, if you think about it, it's kind of gross when you eat with unwashed hands. Imagine this. Imagine picking up a piece of yummy, delicious cheese pizza, but you've been playing outside in the mud, and so you've got mud all over your hands. Oh, that's just not right. But they had a good point. It is good to wash your hands, but if you don't wash your hands, does that mean that you don't have God on the inside and that you don't want to follow his rules? No. The people, they took this very seriously because they said that not washing their hands, that made them unclean before God. Now that meant that they couldn't go to the temple to worship God. That meant that they thought that the way people were on the outside and the way that they ate, that's what made them unclean before God on the inside. So here's right where Jesus speaks up. He turns right back to them and he says, you know what he says? He says, "It is written." And do you know what that means? That means that the Bible says. He said that you people, you honor God with what you're saying, but your hearts are far from him. You don't really love God. You don't really truly worship God. What you're teaching human rules, not God's rules. Now he was saying that instead of following the rules of God, they changed the rules. They changed the rules to make things easier for them. They changed God's rules because they were selfish and they wanted power. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever ignored one of your parents' rules? Maybe your mom or your dad said that you couldn't have a good, nice, round, delicious cookie before dinner. But you thought in your mind, I really want that cookie. And then before dinner, you actually broke the rule. You broke the rule and you ate it because it looked so good. It looked so delicious and you really wanted it. You broke the rule because you were thinking about what you wanted, not what your parents wanted. Well, then as it was time for dinner, you started telling your parents that your tummy was hurting. Well, the truth is, they knew that all along, and that's why they made the rules. You were thinking for you, and they were thinking for you too. That's why they made the rules. Well, that's how God's rules are. Sometimes people think that their rules are easier or better than the actual truth is. But the truth is, God's rules are there because he loves us so much, and he knows what's best for us. Listen. Jesus knows that it's important for us to wash our hands before we eat. Even the world is telling us to wash our hands before we eat. Even the President of the United States is telling us to wash our hands before we eat. But the people, they don't understand. They don't understand what the law really meant. Washing our hands isn't what helps us have a relationship with God. Being clean on the outside, that doesn't mean we're clean on the inside. Look, let's talk for a minute about what it means to be clean on the inside. You know, we always talk about sins separating us from God. Sins are anything we do that are not pleasing to God. And when we sin, It makes us dirty on the inside, like our hearts are black. Now we know we can read our Bible, we can pray, we can go to church, we can be nice to our friends or our parents, and all those things are so great and important. But they don't make our hearts clean. No, the only thing that can do that, the only thing that can make our hearts clean is Jesus. Think about Romans chapter 10. Romans 10:9 says that if you confess with your mouth and say Jesus is Lord, and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, then you will be saved. Now, Jesus can make your heart clean.